In the late 15th century, when the world was still a mystery and the oceans were feared more than they were understood, one man dared to sail. In 1492, 3 small ships cut through the dark waters of the Atlantic, carrying sailors who had no idea whether they would ever return home. The winds were harsh, supplies were limited, and fear slowly grew among the crew. Yet their leader remained determined, driven by a bold idea to reach Asia by sailing west. That man was Christopher Columbus. His journey was not just a sea voyage. It was a moment that would change the course of human history forever. But was he a heroic explorer, or a man whose actions led to unimaginable consequences? This single journey opened the door to new lands, new encounters, and a clash of civilizations that still shapes our world today. Christopher Columbus was an Italian navigator whose ambition matched the vastness of the oceans he crossed. Living in a time when European nations were desperate to find faster trade routes to Asia, Columbus believed he could succeed where others had failed. Backed by the Spanish crown after years of rejection, he set sail on a mission that would link Europe and the Americas for the first time. In this video, we will explore the complete journey of Christopher Columbus, from his early dreams and struggles, to his famous voyage across the Atlantic, and finally to the lasting impact of his discoveries. This is not just the story of discovering a new land, but the story of how one decision reshaped history, cultures, and the future of the modern world. Early life of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 in Genoa, a port city in present-day Italy. From a very young age, he was surrounded by ships, sailors, and stories of the sea, which deeply influenced his imagination. His father was a wool weaver, but Columbus was drawn more toward the ocean than trade. As a teenager, he began working on merchant ships, traveling across the Mediterranean and along the Atlantic coast. These early voyages helped him gain practical knowledge of navigation, winds, and currents. Columbus also educated himself by reading books on geography, astronomy, and exploration. He was especially fascinated by the idea that the Earth was round and believed Asia could be reached by sailing west. This belief shaped his life's ambition. Although his calculations were incorrect, his confidence never faded. His early life was a combination of hard experience at sea and self-learning, which prepared him for the daring journey that would later change world history. The idea that changed history during the 15th century. European nations were eager to find new trade routes to Asia, especially for spices, silk, and gold. The traditional land routes were long, dangerous, and controlled by rival powers. Christopher Columbus proposed a bold idea, reaching Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. He believed this route would be shorter than sailing around Africa. However, his calculations underestimated the size of the Earth. Many scholars and advisors rejected his plan, considering it too risky. Columbus spent years traveling across Europe, seeking financial support from different kings and queens. He faced repeated rejection and poverty but refused to abandon his dream. Finally, in 1492, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain agreed to support him. They provided ships, supplies, and a crew, hoping for wealth and new territories. This decision became one of the most significant moments in history, setting the stage for a journey that would connect to previously unknown worlds. Preparation for the first voyage. Once Columbus received royal support, preparations began quickly. 3 ships were chosen for the expedition: the Santa Maria, the Nina, and the Pinta. These were small ships by today's standards, making the journey even more dangerous. Recruiting sailors was difficult because many feared sailing into the unknown ocean. Some believed they would fall off the edge of the world or face sea monsters. Columbus promised rewards and used royal authority to assemble his crew. Supplies such as food, water, tools, and weapons were loaded, though they were limited and meant to last only a few months. Columbus was appointed Admiral of the Ocean Sea and promised titles and wealth if he succeeded. Despite doubts and fear, the expedition was ready. On August 3rd, 1492, the ships departed from the Spanish port of Palos. This moment marked the beginning of one of the most famous voyages in human history. The first voyage across the Atlantic, 1492, the journey across the Atlantic was long, uncertain, and frightening. Weeks passed without sight of land, and tensions grew among the crew. Food began to spoil, and sailors worried they would never return home. Some even threatened mutiny. Columbus remained calm and confident, often hiding the true distance traveled to keep morale high. He relied on his navigation skills and faith in his mission. On October 12, 1492, after more than 2 months at sea, land was finally sighted. The ships reached an island in the Bahamas, which Columbus named San Salvador. He believed he had reached islands near Asia and called the local people Indians. This moment marked the first recorded European contact with the Americas. Although Columbus did not realize it, this landing would forever change world history. Encounters with indigenous people upon arrival. Columbus and his crew encountered the indigenous peoples of the Caribbean. They were curious, peaceful, and unfamiliar with European technology. Columbus described them as generous and friendly, but also saw them as potential subjects for Spain. He claimed the land in the name of the Spanish crown and began exploring nearby islands. The Europeans introduced new animals, weapons, and diseases, which the native populations had never encountered. While initial interactions were mostly peaceful, misunderstandings and exploitations soon followed. Columbus believed the indigenous people could be converted to Christianity and used as labor. These early encounters marked the beginning of colonization, which would have devastating consequences for native populations. Although Columbus viewed his actions as part of his mission, history now recognizes the suffering that followed. Later, voyages and expansion. Christopher Columbus made a total of 4 voyages to the Americas between 1492 and 1504. On his later journeys, he explored parts of Cuba, Hispaniola, Jamaica, and Central America. Spanish settlements were established, and European influence expanded rapidly. However, Columbus struggled as a governor. His leadership was criticized for being harsh and ineffective. Conflicts arose between settlers and indigenous people, and even among Spaniards themselves. Reports of cruelty and mismanagement reached Spain, leading to Columbus being arrested and sent back in chains. Although he was later released, his reputation suffered greatly. Despite these challenges, his voyages opened the door for further exploration and colonization by other European powers. Consequences and controversies. The voyages of Christopher Columbus had enormous consequences. They led to the exchange of plants, animals, cultures, and ideas between the Old World and the New World, known as the Columbian Exchange. However, this exchange also brought disease, slavery, and destruction to indigenous civilizations. Millions of native people died due to illness and exploitation. Today, Columbus is a controversial figure. Some view him as a brave explorer who changed history, while others see him as a symbol of colonization and suffering. Modern historians aim to present a balanced view, recognizing both his achievements and the harm caused by his actions. Legacy of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus died in 1506, still believing he had reached Asia. He never realized that he had discovered a new continent. Despite this, his legacy remains powerful. His journeys connected Europe and the Americas, shaping global trade, politics, and culture. Cities, holidays, and monuments were named after him, though many are now being re-examined. Columbus's story reminds us that history is complex. His ambition and courage changed the world, but his actions also led to deep human suffering. Understanding his journey helps us understand the beginnings of the modern world and the responsibilities that come with discovery.